Hello, boys and girls. I'm your Peter Pan storyteller.
This is the story of The Last Starfighter.
This is the story of Gremlins.
This is the story of Tron.
This is the story of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
This is the story of The Empire Strikes Back.
You can read along with me in your book.
You can follow the story along with me.
Every time you hear this sound,
every time you hear this sound,
turn the pages when you hear this sound.
You will know it is time to turn the page when you hear the computer sound like this.
Let's begin now.
Steve Austin, astronaut, a man barely alive. Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Hey kids, it's Rob Lamley, host of When You Hear This Sound, brought to you by the Space Monkey X Audio Workshop, here with another record of retro adventure goodness. This week we're listening to one of the 1970s biggest pop culture phenomena, The $6 Million Man. The $6 Million Man was a series that followed Colonel Steve Austin, played by Lee Majors, who was severely injured when the experimental aircraft he was flying crashed, leaving him a broken mess. In all, his right arm, both legs, and his left eye were replaced by high-tech robotics thanks to OSI, a secret organization within the U.S. government, at the cost of $6 million, or about $40.6 million today, adjusted for inflation. His right arm gave him a superhuman strength and a handy-dandy Geiger counter. His legs allowed him to outrun most cars and leap upwards of 30 feet. The cybernetic eye let him zoom in, assisted in targeting his enemies, and had infrared and night vision capabilities. The show started life as 3 made-for-TV movies that all aired in 1973 on ABC. Thanks to their rating success, the network developed a show that ran from 1974 until 1978 for a total of 99 episodes over 5 seasons. Nearly a decade after the show ended, 3 more made-for-TV movies were produced between 1987 and 1994, proving that the show's appeal lived on well after the series' demise. The show had a crazy cast of friends and foes, including Jamie Summers, the Bionic Woman, played by Lindsay Wagner, as well as infamously cheesy episodes with Bigfoot, played by professional wrestler Andre the Giant. The Bionic Woman would make many appearances on the show and the later made-for-TV movies, including one where the 2 cyborgs tied the knot. In the 1970s, the $6 Million Man was everywhere. Lunchboxes, t-shirts, board games, tennis shoes, comic books, and a very influential toy line that is still highly sought after today by collectors. As with a lot of great icons of the pre-VHS era, there were also records. Through the Power Records imprint, Peter Pan Records put out a few different formats of $6 Million Man records, including some that were comic books and others that were just audio only. Unfortunately, I only have a record, not a record book, but I'd love to add the record book to my collection someday. Even without the visuals, though, the 4 stories on this record are great and well worth checking out. Today I have side A of the record for you, featuring 2 stories. One is essentially an audio drama of the first pilot film, titled Birth of the Bionic Man. The other is an original story called Iron Heart, about a mind-controlling princess who is forcing her father's hand, and only Steve Austin can help. Unfortunately, the signature bionic sound must not have been approved for use by Power Records, so it's not a perfect adaptation of the show. But you can make the sound for yourself while listening whenever it seems appropriate. Just make sure your coworkers can't hear you. And with that, let's get into The $6 Million Man from Power Records, released in 1976. Enjoy.
It's too bad you guys in Houston didn't come along for the ride. I've got this sensational view of Earth from where I'm standing. Unless I look at the next bridge, I'm wondering if I could hit a golf ball over it in this gravity. Anybody want to give me odds?
That was an excerpt from astronaut Steve Austin's famous transmission to Earth during his historic walk on the moon several years ago. It was the voice of a courageous explorer, a man dedicated to the pursuit of man's knowledge and the expansion of his horizons. And it was for those very reasons that Steve Austin was piloting the experimental aircraft that exploded so devastatingly on the Nevada salt flats today, leaving Colonel Steve Austin a broken shell of a man, so badly injured his doctors say he won't be alive in the morning. Let us all say a silent prayer for Colonel Austin tonight, a true American hero, a man history will never forget.
You know, there's a very strong chance Austin won't be alive in the morning, Oscar.
It's your job to make those other doctors liars, Rudy.
We're in a top-security government medical center.
where high-ranking Oscar Goldman and top scientist Rudy Wells have been listening to one of the many broadcasts devoted to Steve Austin's tragedy.
Is your team all set to go?
They're scrubbing now. The plastics are already in the operating room, along with the microcircuitry and the other hardware. Oscar, we've had the technology to do this for some time now. Every scientific variable has been computed and taken into account, except for one thing.
The human factor.
Right. We still don't know the extent of the psychological effects this operation will have on a human being, assuming the patient even survives.
But if he does, Rudy, we'll be witnessing one of the scientific achievements of the century, the birth of the world's first bionic man.
For 14 hours, Rudy Wells and his team of highly trained specialists painstakingly labor over the battered and broken body of Colonel Steve Austin, implementing scientific principles and technological procedures never before tested on a human being, and overseeing each and every phase of the incredibly intricate operation is a vigilant Oscar Goldman, silently spectating from the observation room. It is not until 7 days later that Steve Austin opens his eyes to groggily wonder where he is, without the slightest inkling that one of the eyes he just opened is not his own.
Am I dreaming, or is everyone in heaven as beautiful as you?
You're not dreaming, and you're not in heaven, Colonel, but thanks for the compliment. Now, take your medication. There you are.
Thank you, nurse. Could you leave us alone now?
Who are you?
My name's Oscar Goldman, and this is Dr. Rudy Wells. He headed the surgical team that worked on you.
Colonel Austin?
I don't know how you guys managed it, but thanks for pulling me through. I was sure I was a goner on the way down.
How do you feel?
A little dragged out and groggy, but otherwise great. Like I've never been better.
That's exactly right, Colonel Austin. You never have been better. You're better now than you ever were before.
What's that supposed to mean?
In saving your life, Colonel Austin, we had to make some adjustments in your physical makeup.
Adjustments?
Improvements would be a better word. You're now faster, stronger, more durable than you ever were.
Take a look at your right hand.
It's my hand. So what?
Move the fingers.
I don't get it. I see the fingers moving, but it doesn't feel like I'm moving them.
You are and you're not. The nerve impulses from your brain are being relayed via microcircuitry and mini transistors.
Wait a minute. It's not just my fingers. My whole arm feels this way. Just what did you guys do to me?
We saved your life the only way possible. A way that only became possible this year, thanks to recent breakthroughs in technology.
What sort of technology?
Bionics, Colonel Austin. We have used advanced scientific techniques to duplicate what your own flesh and blood used to do.
Used to do?
Your injuries were extremely grave, Colonel. You lost your right arm and both your legs, along with your left eye.
You mean this arm I've got now?
It's bionic, as are your legs and your eye.
We don't expect you to adjust to this all at once. After all...
I don't want any part of any of it. You should have let me die in that plane. I'm getting out of here.
No, Austin, you must stay in your bed.
Out of my way.
You mustn't. Your bionic legs aren't ready yet.
But like an enraged wild animal, Steve Austin leaps from his bed, his bionic arm knocking Oscar and Rudy aside like they were no more than rag dolls.
Don't be a fool, Austin. Rudy!
As Oscar Goldman rushes to a stunned Rudy's side, a bionic wild man begins to charge through the hospital corridor.
It's Colonel Austin.
He must be stopped. Where are the orderlies?
There they are.
It's no use. Those bionic limbs are too much for him.
This will stop him.
Mr. Goldman, you've got the tranquilizer gun.
Rudy said compressed air charge will put him to sleep in seconds.
The bionic man feels the drugged air blast against his neck, whirls angrily to face his attacker, and then...
I didn't think we'd ever stop him. You dosed him just in time, Mr. Goldman.
If you ask me, all the government's got so far for their $6 million is an uncontrollable wild man.
It is another 24 hours before Steve Austin opens his eyes again, to see Oscar Goldman again standing at his bedside.
How do you feel?
After yesterday, how come I'm not strapped to my bed?
You lost control of yourself, that's all. It was understandable under the circumstances. Besides, I don't think we could find a strap your bionic arm couldn't break through.
I know. I'm stronger, faster, better, right? But you left out one thing. I'm not a man anymore. I'm a freak.
I'm not going to debate the issue with you, Colonel. There's someone on the floor who's been begging to meet you. He's a general's son, and he's been paralyzed from the waist down. I'm afraid not even bionics can repair the damage to his spinal cord.
At that moment, the door opens and a 10-year-old boy, strapped to a wheelchair, rolls himself in.
It's all right, Bobby. Come in. Bobby, this is Steve Austin. Colonel, this is little Bobby Phillips.
Steve Austin! Oh, wow. You don't know what a thrill it is to meet you.
I'll leave you two alone now.
I've I've been your biggest fan, Colonel Austin, ever since that day I watched you walk on the moon on TV. Boy, that was some crash you were in last week. But Mr. Goldman says you'll be okay.
That's what he tells me.
Anyway, I was in an accident, too, but I wasn't as lucky as you. Still, if one of us had to end up stuck in a wheelchair, I'm glad it was me. I'm just a little kid. I'm not nearly as important as an astronaut.
You really believe that, don't you?
Well, I've got to be going now. I'll be back later to get your autograph if that's okay.
The crippled youngster wheels himself out, leaving an ashamed Steve Austin alone with his thoughts and his self-pity. The next morning, as Oscar and Rudy walk along the corridor of the hospital's top-secret bionic wing.
So the kid did get to see him yesterday.
Yes, but we still don't know what effect, if any, that sound. What is it?
It seems to be coming from the therapy room. It sounds like a treadmill.
And as they fling open the door to the well-equipped therapeutic gym,
It's Austin. I see. And look at the speedometer. He's running over 60 miles per hour and still accelerating.
Incredible. The bionic legs are functioning perfectly.
Rudy, I think Colonel Austin just may have decided being bionic might be worth a try after all.
and several days later, a pleased Oscar Goldman records an impressive progress report into his personal diary.
And it turned out that the session with the little boy snapped Austin out of his self-pity and back to his senses. We immediately began running tests on him, and found to our amazement his bionic strength was powerful enough to lift entire cars. His bionic legs were mighty enough to enable him to jump a full 30 feet in the air. His bionic eye was telescopic enough to read the lettering on a postage stamp from 100 yards away. Everyone on the project agrees. Our $6 million man was worth every penny he cost. But I can't help wondering what Steve Austin would say if he ever found out that Bobby Phillips could walk as well as any other boy. Because he was an actor I hired to play on Steve Austin's sympathy and common sense. It was a dirty trick, I admit, but sometimes in a crisis... End of tape for now. Signing off. Come in. Come in, Steve. You should be very proud of yourself. Your test performances have far exceeded our expectations.
That's just what I wanted to talk about, Oscar.
Oh?
I wasn't an astronaut and a test pilot for nothing. I've been around long enough to know the government doesn't invest $6 million into a man without expecting something in return.
I can't fault your logic, Colonel.
I didn't think you would. I owe you a few, don't I?
Let's just say there'll be occasional jobs we'd like you to do for us. In fact, I could brief you on your first assignment right now. What do you say, pal?
Steve Austin, reporting for duty. Pal?
Cider at all, Steve?
Cider. Valmaria, right? That's the king of that country who was in a plane that flew through an atomic blast, 20 years ago.
I hope you know more about the place than that. You're going there as a goodwill gesture.
Goodwill? But that's a dictatorial monarchy, Oscar. There's more freedom in a jail cell than there is in Valmaria.
Then you do know more about the place. Actually, the king's daughter, Siler, is quite a fan of yours. Have a nice trip, Steve.
Colonel Steve Austin of the United States Air Force.
Welcome to Valmaria, Colonel Austin. My daughter, Princess Siler.
How do you do, Your Majesty? Princess?
Subjects, members of the royal court, our distinguished guest, Colonel Austin. I have an announcement to make. We have among us a man who has walked in space and on the surface of the moon. He has entered the realm of history and stands there among the kings and presidents of our century. It is my honor to announce that he will also stand, from this day on, at the side of my daughter as her husband and the heir to the glorious throne of Valmaria.
Hey, what do you mean? I can't get married to your daughter.
Excuse me, Colonel, but are you declining the hand of my daughter, the princess?
Am I? Yes, I'm declining. Of course I'm declining.
Take him out and shoot him.
What on earth?
No, Father. Oh, please, no.
Yes, my dear. Colonel, I must do this to spare the innocent sensibilities of my lovely daughter, whom you have so mercilessly devastated. To the stockade with him.
Come along, sir.
Oof. Get that hand off me. You too, fella.
I'll go to the stockade with your men if you want, Sidor. But I won't be carried there. You can be sure the American government will have lots to say about my treatment here.
As you wish.
Your Highness?
God,
Would you please let me talk to the prisoner alone?
Of course, Your Highness. His Majesty your father has issued a solemn proclamation that his subjects obey your will as if it were His Majesty's own.
Thank you, God. Steve? Oh, Steve Austin, I cannot believe you're already here.
You better believe it. Your old man put me here.
No, I mean here in Valmaria. Oh, please consent to marry me, dear Steve. It's the only way my father will release you.
Princess, aren't you awfully young to be going around hunting for a husband?
I'm very advanced for my age. For any age, really. Didn't you wonder why my father was acting as he did?
I certainly did, but I figured once I got out of here, that was a problem for the diplomats. Hey, what's that noise?
What noise?
That noise. Like a mob or an army.
Mob? Army? The rebels. Oh, no. They're massing against us. They've been threatening for weeks, but I never thought they tried to come. They'll storm the palace. They'll kill us all.
If you'll excuse me, Princess.
You're breaking the door off its hinges.
Looks as though I'll be making my exit ahead of schedule.
Hey, who goes there? Was that a man? It went by at the speed of a locomotive.
In seconds, Steve reaches the palace and pushes the great door open.
Zidor, I want an explanation for this madness now, before that oncoming mob makes chopped meat out of you.
Austin, how did you get out of the stockade? How did you get past my guard?
From the sound of the goings-on at the palace gates, I'd say you've got more pressing things on your mind about now. How about that explanation, eh?
All right. She's upset now. She's out of my head. I can't control myself.
Control yourself? Who's out of your head?
My daughter, Syla. The atomic blast. You know about the atomic blast I was caught in 20 years ago? The one everyone thought I escaped from unhurt.
Thought? It did something to you?
It did something to my offspring. My wife died in childbirth, you know, and my little girl was amazingly intelligent almost from the moment of birth. More intelligent than most heads of state. What's more, she has some sort of mental link with me, and having a stronger mind than I have, she can make me do whatever she wants mentally. The atomic blast did that. She is the real ruler of Valmaria. She made me bring you here.
Well, sorry I can't stay and tell you how amazing that story is, King Zidor. But I think your subjects have just broken into the palace.
They've broken in. They want to kill me. What do I
Stay where you are and don't move. I'll be back. Promise.
The Royal Guard is helpless before us!
Quiet, everyone. Calm down. Hold it. You've got the palace. Now, what is it you want?
Freedom! Liberty! Zidor's head! We've got the princess! We want the king to sign this paper!
Princess? Where's the princess? What paper?
We will execute the princess and chase the king to the ends of the earth unless he signs this document!
Let me see this. Freedom of speech, of the press, freedom of religion, right to assemble, innocent until proven guilty. Sounds good to me. I'll talk to the king.
And signing that is the only way to save Syla.
That's the way I see it, Zidor.
Give me that pen. I'll put my name and seal on. Something's wrong. I can't bring my hand down to it. My daughter is controlling my mind again. She won't let me do it.
That irresponsible little brat. That means she's not upset at the moment, at least. I wonder what they're doing to...
Oh, wait. I'm freed again.
Something just happened to make your daughter alarmed and let you go. I hope I'm on time.
What? What are you rabble doing? Why are you hoisting up this cage?
If that American friend of yours does not return with the signed liberation document in the next few minutes, we are going to cut loose the cage you're in and let it and you fall into the well, 100 feet below the surface.
We may not have a few minutes. The rope holding her cage is weakening, going to break.
Oh, I'm starting to fall. Help me, someone. Steve! Oh, dear Steve! Save me!
The well below has a heavy rock rim above ground level.
The rope broke. She's falling.
America, look how fast he's...
Bring his body feet first into the wall around the well. The rocks are falling across the mouth of the well. It's closed. The well is closed down.
Princess, you all right? You didn't fall very far. Your cage fell on the rocks that just collapsed over the mouth of the well.
Yes, Steve. I'm just a little shaken.
Wait. Here. Here it is, the document. I signed and sealed it. You can free the princess now. You can release her.
Sidor the tyrant!
I'll stop him. One bullet from this gun.
No! Oh! You assassin? Here, this'll take care of you.
Father! Oh, this is my fault. Father! Are you all right?
I think so. That bullet made a part in my hair.
More than just your hair, Your Majesty. You should have that grazed skull looked at.
Never mind me. Here! Here's your precious document, and here's freedom to do everything except abuse your freedoms. I see you're not stopping me from giving this to our people, daughter.
I wouldn't stop you, and I don't think I could anymore. You were grazed on the skull. Your mind is your own again, my father, and you are welcome to it.
As our people are welcome to their new free lives.
Tell me, Princess Siler, your father explained about your being able to control his mind because your genes were somehow changed by his atomic bomb accident. But did that bump on his head really end your ability to control him?
Oh, Steve, dear, you are perceptive, aren't you? Let's just say he won't have to worry about being his own man ever again.
Then something has changed. You've grown up a lot today, young lady.
I'll grow up a little more sometime, Steve. And maybe I'll see you again when I do.
Thanks for stopping by the show today. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. You can head over to spacemonkeyx.net for pictures, links, and additional information about this episode, and check out some of the other podcasts presented by the Space Monkey X Audio Workshop. This has been your host, Rob Lamley. Thanks for listening to When You Hear This Sound, the podcast dedicated to the weird and wonderful world of read-along record books and storybook vinyl. I'll see y'all next time.